Hey everybody, good afternoon. Welcome to the Gridiron Nation Online, our weekly webcast to get you set for the Ohio State game that was and the game that will be with Coach Bill Conley. I'm Jerod Smalley. Coach, of course, our Buckeye analyst here at NBC4, the man that kind of has the inside scoop on what's going on at Ohio State and what to expect next. We'll start with a review of Indiana. I thought the Indiana performance, Bill, you think about all the things going into it. The first road game, first Big Ten game, competition, you would expect a big jump. Bill, I thought even playing imperfect football, the results were impressive of what they did to the Hoosiers. Absolutely.
And, Jerod, I think the thing that was most impressive, all three phases of the game were highly performed. We did a great job offensively, defensively, and special teams. And I think the first nail that went in Indiana's coffin was obviously the block by Olave right before the half's over.
Yeah.
You know, that was a huge play. And then I think the second nail was the first drive of the third quarter. 7 plays, 75 yards for opening first possession of the second half. And after that, it was just a matter of not who was going to win, how much.
Absolutely. It was a runaway. Offensively, so Justin Fields' first 2 games, highly accurate, above 80%. Third game, you saw some accuracy issues, and it actually might work to the benefit of Ohio State. I'll explain what I mean. He was just a little bit off, Bill, especially in the first half of that game. Throwing some touch passes, some stuff over the middle. Joel Klatt, the Fox commentator on the TV broadcast, made some notes about Fields' technique, his right elbow height, sailing the football over the middle. Having said that, with those accuracy issues, Ohio State never had trouble moving the ball down the field consistently. Run, pass options. They obviously set up some play action. The deep ball to Olave was set up by, I think, 6 consecutive runs, just keeping defenses guessing. Even with him not being accurate, they are still moving the football. It's just scary to think when he's on the money how hard that will be to stop.
Exactly. And there's so many playmakers. You know, let's face it, the real key to success offensively of the Ohio State Buckeyes this year is the offensive line.
Yeah.
Whatever you talk about, opening up huge holes. It's nice to see us really having a strong running attack. This reemergence of a running game at Ohio State is so important. And then pass protection when need be. And even though some passes were a little bit off, no picks. You know, we still handled the job, and we really do make big plays when we have to make big plays.
That's a good point. They were off, but they were off to the right team.
Exactly.
You'll take that. So we're taking your questions and comments online here at Facebook for the next 15, 20 minutes or so. You can catch us there, NBC4 Facebook page. You can also watch us at NBC4i.com. It's probably where many of you are seeing us now. If you have a question for us, hit up the comment section there on the NBC4 Facebook page. Just post a comment in the comment. Let us know what you think about the team, questions you have about the team, things you're curious about the upcoming opponent with Miami, and we'll ask Coach Conley here. A few folks already chimed in. Kim, hi from Carlsbad, New Mexico.
Holy smokes.
The internet works. That's impressive, Kim. Welcome. Hi to Stacy. Hi to Patrick. Hope you guys are well, and thanks for tuning in this afternoon. Let's talk a little bit about the defense, Bill, because you think back to what the performance looked like the first 2 weeks, and you're thinking, well, all right, there's some signs that things may be turning around from a year ago. Game 3, I think, was 100% evidence of it. I think you look at the pass rush up front. You got Chase in the backfield for a couple of sacks, but he wasn't alone. A lot of guys got a sack in this game. They were frequently harassing the quarterback. They were, especially on the back end, Bill, defending the passes extremely well. They were tight in coverage. When they did get burned, they made up for it almost immediately. I thought it was the most impressive total defensive effort we'd seen so far. That's saying something.
Absolutely. And I think the key is our defense has made our opponents a one-dimensional team. What I mean by that is they can't run the ball.
Yeah.
And, you know, look at a team like Indiana, you know, who knew early in the game we'd shut down the running game so much they had to throw the football. Yeah, why try?
They just quit.
Can't do it. And the other thing is that when you do that, it's a percentage game. If you throw the ball a whole bunch, eventually there's going to be some bad things happen, some interceptions and things like that. And so, you know, as a situation, the thing that I think has been the biggest change in Ohio State defense this year has been attitude. They truly believe they're good, and they're proving it. They got a big chip on their shoulder to make up for last year, and they do a great job of challenging each other. I was talking to one of the coaches yesterday at Ohio State. They said, this team is so close, and they really challenge each other. And it makes coaching fun.
Yeah.
You don't have issues to deal with getting guys to perform at a high level. They give great effort. And if you do that, you're going to make a lot of plays.
Through three games, what's the biggest difference at linebacker?
I think the ability to read the play quickly and make tackles. They're not missing tackles. They get into the ball quickly because they're making good reads, and they're leaving the adjustments primarily to the secondary, not to the linebackers.
Biggest example of that, Pete Werner. Pete Werner getting in there that 3rd and 1, getting the quarterback down before the line of scrimmage. Sure tackler, tackling in space. Right. You know, I think all those points you're making, I think those are examples. And I think Pete might be the best example of that year to year. We saw him make some big hits, some big plays a year ago, but from a consistency standpoint, it seems he's always around the football this year. Yeah,
he's right now who I would call the most improved player on the defensive unit. And he's got a great supporting cast. So Jordan Fuller, he's been leading tackler all year, making great plays from the safe position. Malik Harrison, the hybrid defensive back linebacker, playing great. And, of course, up front, there's a whole army of guys there.
All right, Coach, I got a new one for you.
Okay.
Charlotte has checked in. Charlotte says hi from Cumbria, United Kingdom.
We're international.
We went international, Bill.
Did it.
We made it across the Atlantic. Hi, Charlotte, and thank you very much for watching us. I tell you, that is impressive. Boy, the reach of Ohio State, that goes a long way. Dan Canfield has a question about Master Teague. He says basically, how about Master Teague? And I think that's a valuable point to talk about. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins had the monster game, 193 yards rushing. He looked tremendous. But Master Teague running for a 40-yard touchdown is, to me, an enormous deal, Bill, because it does give them now a better option with a physical back, a guy who's not afraid. Picked up a couple critical first downs in that game, too, I'll note. They have the pair, it seems like. Now they just got to find the spare, but it seems like they've got the pair at running back they need.
Well, they have what I call the triumvirate right now of runners. And what I mean by that is you've got J.K. Dobbins, obviously, getting better and better. Almost 200 yards the other day. You got Master Teague, who went for over 100, and Justin Fields.
Sure.
So you got 3 guys. Everybody that we play has to defend, running the football. Now, I agree with you. There's got to be another guy to be that spare guy. Is that going to be Crowley? Is it going to be Steel Chambers? I don't think really they want McCall at that position very much. He's more of a hybrid type of guy. I think they'd like to use him more outside. But those guys really are showing great improvement, and we were worried in the summer because Master Teague was hurt and didn't get to practice all that. And he had great spring again, but was he going to be ready for the fall? And he proved he's ready. And the thing I like for a big guy, he's got some shake and bake for a big guy.
Got to the outside, that
Absolutely.
3rd and 1.
And it broke away for a 40-plus yarder. Ran over a guy a couple times. I tell you what, he is, if you talk about most improved, he might be the most improved guy on the offensive side.
You might be right on that. I think it's interesting to see. So when you look at some growth in some players, I think the player who you might even say the Indiana game was the Chris Olave game because of everything he contributed. Bill, they're making sure catches on the outside. Chris obviously has a great set of hands, great feet, great concentration. Gets feet down inbounds when he's going out of bounds, basically. Gets first down yardage. But then the block punt, we actually diagnosed it on the air. Obviously, he's not alone in that. It's not just he just ran alone unblocked. There's reasons he was unblocked. He was not accounted for by the Indiana punt team. But his overall effect on this offense seems to be significant.
Well, the thing about him is he's a great athlete. I mean, he's got tremendous speed and acceleration. You pick a guy like that to go block a punt or do anything like that. He also, he has the ability to return kicks. I mean, this may be the most versatile athlete we've seen at Ohio State in a long time. He can do so many things.
He's really, do you think he's their best receiver?
I think he probably is right now. I'd have to say he is, even though, KJ Hill has got some passes, and our tight ends are good receivers. Ben Victor is a good receiver, but I think the premier guy right now is Chris Olave, and I mentioned that in the spring, that he was the guy I was looking forward to seeing perform this year, and he came on a lot faster than I thought he would.
All right. Leslie McLaughlin, hi. Love you guys. We love you too. Thank you for watching us today. Dan asks, do you think you're going to see more big plays, more plays from the tight ends? I think you mean in the pass game, obviously, because they're blocking really well right now, and there's a lot of them. I think they're playing 4 tight ends at this point. They've played more than that, actually, earlier in the year. But their involvement in the offense, first game, you saw Jeremy Ruckert with a couple touchdowns, and you're like, oh, that's going to be a tight end year. Well, and obviously that eroded. But there's a reason that eroded, because defenses saw that on tape the first week and said, well, we got to eliminate those guys. And that left, you saw in the Cincinnati game, you're just going sideline to sideline with wideouts because they're just not covering it, because they're afraid of what's going to happen in the interior, Bill. So I think the tight end game might be a little bit more of a cat and mouse game with defenses.
Well, I think what the coaches do, Jerod, and I've been really impressed. It seems like their game plan, offensive game plan for all the defenses they've gone up against so far is right on, spot on. And some where they see more tight ends, obviously there's a reason why they're doing that.
Right.
Other maybe more spread formations against other teams. So I think it depends completely on the team that they're going up against.
Sure.
Now, you got a game this week where you might see even more things to really primarily make opponents down the road prepare for.
So I was going to ask you about. That's a little bit what you do in the Miami game. And that's a great transition to get into Miami here. These guys coming to Ohio Stadium Saturday. Bill, they're 1-2 in the season. They're highly outmatched. I think the point spread's running around 40 points like we kind of thought it might. That might be low, depending on how well Ohio State comes out from the jump. You mentioned practice has been pretty heated this week because they really want to get after it. They don't want to let down. They see too many errors on tape to feel that confident about themselves, and they feel like they want an opportunity to correct that. So, Bill, let's talk about Miami. What do we know about them? Obviously, it starts with a freshman quarterback, which I'd imagine going into Ohio Stadium is a little scary.
Well, you know, they got quite a few players back. And if you look, for example, on the offensive line and some other places on defense, they got a lot of juniors and seniors.
Yeah.
You know, they got a guy who's a tight end. He's on that list, you know, for one of the major awards.
Mackey Award?
The Mackey Award, he's on that list. You got the center, the Remington list. You got the defensive tackle, he's on the Benderek list. So they got guys on the list. Now, they'll never win those awards, but at least that means they got some talent. But they got a lot of talent come back on an average football team.
Yeah.
You know, they were 6-6, they were bowl eligible, they didn't get invited to a bowl. So, you know, it's going to take a masterful, you know, that's a masterful challenge for them. And the quarterback they got is a freshman. He's a 6-foot freshman. Now, they might have to give him a step ladder out there to climb up on to throw over top.
You know what? Good genetics, though. The Gabbert, Gabbert family's got some quarterbacks.
Yeah, brother plays for Tampa Bay and things like that. But I look for our defensive front to really get after him because we intercepted a pass for a touchdown the other day.
And you called it.
Well,
I'll give you credit.
I think the next one. I'm not sure if it was this, but I think it could happen this week.
Okay.
I think we'll scoop and score one. I think at defensive front, because they are really good pass. It's going to be tough for the Miami offensive line to keep our front, our defensive front out of the backfield.
It won't happen.
No, they got to do something. Look for them to be a lot of short passes. Look for them to be a lot of screens, things like that, draw plays. Try to do anything to protect that quarterback. They don't want to get in a third and long situation, believe me. No
one does, but especially that group, considering what they're going to be on the up against on the other side of the football defensively against Ohio State and their powerful offensive line, which has controlled the season so far. They've been so good at it. This is, by the way, Dan, your question is this a weekly thing? Every Wednesday. Wednesday around 2 o'clock, we'll come online. We'll do about 25 minutes or so and get you caught up on what's going on with Ohio State in the game that was, the game that is coming, and then also we'll take a look around the Big Ten. So before we get too far ahead, I want to do that because we want to talk about a massive game in the Big Ten coming up this weekend. It is Michigan at Wisconsin. That is a noon kickoff. That's the big Fox game this week. It's the big premier matchup in the Big Ten, and it is a game that I think is going to tell us an awful lot about both those teams because we think in some regards Wisconsin, after a rough year last year, might be back. We saw their season opener at South Florida. You've got their outstanding running back looking like a Heisman contender again, catching passes out of the backfield again. They've got a quarterback who can throw it, and you're thinking this is a new look Wisconsin offensively. And then there's Michigan coming off a bye week after a real struggle against Army. I can't wait to see who comes out in this one.
Yeah, I think Michigan is going to have a masterful performance to have any chance to win this game. You know, Wisconsin leads the nation, not just Big Ten, leads the nation in a lot of defensive categories.
Sure.
Against the run, against the pass, total defense, all those things. And we know that Michigan has already had troubles with their offense, moving the football and scoring points.
Right.
It would not surprise me if Wisconsin doesn't beat Michigan by more than 2 touchdowns.
Is that right?
I think that they will handle Michigan up there. And I think Michigan, this could be a turning point for their program this year. If they lose that game bad up in Wisconsin, it might be really tough for them to bounce back.
Is Michigan's defense too good to let that happen?
I'll tell you what, Wisconsin, you know, has maybe the best running back in the country.
Yeah.
And their passing game this year has improved. So if they can keep the ball moving, they don't have any turnovers themselves, I think it will be tough for Michigan to hang in there for 4 quarters.
That's one to watch, and obviously Ohio State's playing both those teams this year. So really, you don't really get a benefit out of one winning over the other because you're playing them both. So it's it's the same difference. Ultimately, Bill, Ohio State has to take care of their own business, and the business ahead here is Miami, followed by a trip to Nebraska. Nebraska has a primetime game. They got Illinois. Illinois just got beat by Eastern Michigan. Not good for the league, not good for them. So Nebraska, obviously they had the loss, the ugly one at Colorado. They should have won the football game. They didn't. That's the big test that kind of is laying out here. How critical is it, Bill, in this game to get freshmen into that game, considering that 4-game rule the NCAA has about redshirting? How much pressure does that put on everybody to get a lead and get those guys into the game and get them the snaps they need?
Well, I'm sure that's the plan of the coaching staff. That's exactly what you got to do. Like we talked about the running back spot. Who's going to be that spare guy? Is it going to be Steele Chambers? Is it going to be Marcus Crowley? Who's that going to be? And some other positions on the football field. So, if things go business at hand, they take care of things. Because the first half has been so productive for Ohio State. They got most of their points in the first half. That's exactly what they'll do in the second half. Obviously, get the better guys out there, out of the game a little bit, keep them fresh for a big game following week. At the same time, give those guys the final, what I call rehearsal, for a chance to play for the rest of the year.
A couple of defensive ends, young defensive ends got in the game last week. Zach Harrison getting a sack in that game, Baptiste getting a sack in that game. You're going to see a lot of those guys, I'd imagine. I don't think we didn't get a health report yet from Ohio State, and we don't till Friday morning. If you're curious why you haven't heard a lot about it this year, Ryan Day's policy is they're not going to discuss injuries until Friday morning when they release a report of who's going to be available, who's a game-time decision, who's clearly out of the game. I'd be surprised if Jonathan Cooper's back this week because I don't know why you'd play him. I don't know why you'd risk it other than
you don't want to do that.
Maybe if he's healthy and you just want to get him out there for a few snaps and let him get kind of like geared back into shape maybe. He's not going to be a factor, I don't think, playing in the game, even if he does. But that's the amazing part to me, Bill. He is a high-quality, all Big Ten caliber player who has not played.
Oh, yeah.
And it's at their biggest position of strength right now. I just can't imagine the threat that they're going to pose to teams in third and fourth quarters when you get a fresh Jonathan Cooper coming in essentially third of the way through the season and ramping up that pass rush even more. That's got to give you a lot of hope if you're a Buckeye fan.
Oh, exactly. But in the game of football, it can go from the penthouse to the outhouse really quick if you get a few injuries. So the thing is, you have to have depth, especially on the defensive line. I know we went times in the games before and lost 2 or 3 linemen in one game. Then, you're really scrambling. The fortunate thing for this year, this team is so deep that 1 or 2 injuries, won't be a major effect unless it's at the quarterback spot or something like that. But, the athleticism, the speed, the quickness, and you know what? Here's another thing. The football intelligence of these athletes this year is really showing. They make good keys, good reads, react to what's happening on the field, and you have to react, boom, just like that. And they do a great job of that.
One last call for comments and questions, NBC4i.com, also Facebook Live. If you're watching us on the NBC4 Facebook page right now, got a question or comment you want to ask Coach, put it right there in the comment section as you're watching on Facebook. And I'll get it to Coach right here live on the air, and we'll just have a few minutes here to wrap things up. Coach, one key that you're looking for this Miami game for Ohio State, when you're trying to think about long-term vision for the season, things you want to accomplish, what would be the one thing you think you want to see this team try to accomplish here, whether it's schematically, a specific player, whatever it might be?
Well, there's 2 areas. Number one is, we have not had many major penalties this year. We're really down from what we've been. I think to play a penalty-free game or close to penalty-free, no drive stoppers or anything gets this team, is that quality type of performance you want. You definitely want that. And second of all, you don't want to do something to give them the short field. You don't want to make a turnover. We're very good at securing the football this year too. Let's have a clean game that way. And the rest, talent will take care of the rest of the game. Yeah,
that's not really a big concern. I think it's really more about trying to make sure your own house is in order, it sounds like, this week, and that's a big deal with the coaches, about focus. I think, they're human beings. They all understand who they're playing. They understand, you you're playing 2-star recruits, 5-star recruits, and over the course of a football game, it's just talent's going to win out.
Yeah.
But I do think it's curious how they treat it, how they treat the video study from last week, and when they see those missed assignments, and when they see opportunities lost, points on the field, especially deep shots. They had a couple opportunities down the field and didn't connect on them. When they see those, nothing chips away at your ego more than your own mistakes on tape.
Exactly right. The eye in the sky don't lie.
That's all right.
But the thing about it is that this coaching staff, and I imagine most coaching staffs I've been associated with, a week like this, you coach a little bit harder than normal to keep the players' attention. Michigan week is the easiest week of the year to coach because the players, they push themselves to an unbelievable limit. But a game like this, you want to practice them hard, treat Miami like the best thing in the world. Here's the other part. You want to do some new things, some new wrinkles for two reasons. Number one, to give other teams stuff to prepare for.
Sure.
You might see even more, for example, under the center tight end types of things, going back to passes to tight ends, that type of thing. And the second thing, if you do new things, the players have to focus on new things to make sure they fine-tune it to get it right. So those are the types of things coaches normally do.
That's very smart. That's an interesting way to look at it. One last question here on the show. Kathy writes in, Ohio State settling in at number 6 in the polls. Are we a number 6 team? I feel we are as good or better than the top 5. That's an interesting question, Kathy, and I think right now you can't care about whether they're ranked. They could be ranked 25th, and it wouldn't really matter. They wouldn't be. But I do think that's going to even itself out when we get through the season when you're talking about the who you're playing. LSU should be rewarded. I made this argument last week.
Right.
LSU should be rewarded for going on the road and getting the best win in college football this year. They won at night at Texas. If you don't reward that, then you're not. Then why should you reward Ohio State for going on the road for getting a big win? It doesn't make any sense to me why they shouldn't have jumped to 4. There's basically a clear establishment of the elite teams. The order at this point is inconsequential because at the end it's all going to work itself out.
Absolutely. And I know some guys that think LSU should be number 1 because they played the toughest schedule.
And they probably look better than Clemson so far.
And they look better so far. So, some of those teams are there because of their past, their history, their success they've had. But teams this year in terms of performance, it's hard to argue against what LSU has done. It's hard to argue what Ohio State has done.
It is. And Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's looked sensational.
Exactly.
And you're talking about Jalen Hurts playing quarterback there, who has come over as a transfer from Alabama and has just looked sensational in Lincoln Riley's offense. I mean, Lincoln Riley might be coaching the Cowboys next year, for all I know, or somewhere in the NFL. I mean, he's got a special offensive touch, just the way Ryan Day does at Ohio State. So I wouldn't get too worried about, are they really the 6th best team? I'm not so sure they're the 6th best team. But I'm not certain that they're number 1. I'm not certain that they're number 2. There's just the sample size is so small right now.
Right.
And from a national perspective, it's just hard to say, circumstantial, where they would fit. And if you're just blind draw, right? If you're looking at blind resumes and you don't know who the team name is. I do think that's a curiosity, though, Bill, about the Clemson-Alabama factor because their reputation right now is 3-time national champion opponents. That's a part of the voting process, too. They're human beings that vote on those things.
Exactly right. Right now, one of the major categories of quarterbacks in the country, the 3 guys that are leading are tied: Justin Fields, Tua, and Hurts.
So you're saying that's an important position? It does matter. Thanks so much for joining us here this week for the Gridiron Nation Online. Again, we'll be back next week, next Wednesday. Around 2 o'clock, we'll be here live on NBC4i.com and Facebook as we get you caught up on the Miami game. We'll look ahead to a critical road game at Nebraska next week. Coach Conley will be dressed to the nines. It'll all be good. We'll see you next week.
Go Bucks.